You're listening to CRBRadio.com. The words and opinions you are about to hear are of the hosts and do not reflect the management, sponsors, or affiliates of the broadcast.
All right. Are we live? We're live on both Cave Radio broadcast studio stuff and on Facebook. Jazz Cabbage Cafe strikes again. I know for sure we're not going to be joined by Deb today. She had an unfortunate smelting accident.
Yeah, I saw that.
Some of her genitals are now covered in gold.
Smelt are wicked fish, man. They're like little piranhas of the fresh water. It's terrible.
Smelting is also a function in metals.
I know.
And,
It's also a fish, right?
it is also a fish. Yeah.
That's why I said they're the
She's probably doing a little bit of both.
piranha of the fresh water.
She's
Right?
probably trying to combine both types of smelt, and that's what caused the confusion and thus the accident.
I thought it had to do with a fan, but okay.
It may have. There's variations on the story out there. She was installing
verb for smelling,
and it turned on, and the fan hurt her hand. And fortunately, it was not worse where a finger came off or something like that. But she's definitely bandaged up and is healing. So
We wish her good vibes.
we do
and,
positive vibes to Deb. Healing
We
vibes.
do. And of course, it's a good thing she didn't come on the show today, because if she's all Percocetted up and stuff, we just make fun of her, and it would be fun. It'd be a good
Well,
time.
maybe she has some really extra super cool shit to say. Maybe we should just check in on her anyway.
That's true. She's always smart and witty and got the good things going on. So maybe now she's pretty uninhibited to begin with. So I don't think we get anything more raw than her regular routine, man.
So anyway, I show up here today barely on time.
I forgot my phone today.
And I was telling Colin this too along the way. Hey, you might have to start the show. I'm going to be late. I also don't have any pot. Some other important things. And I got pulled over on the way here in Livingston County by state police. And it was unnerving. I ended up driving away with a ticket for going 5 over the speed limit, which is a civil infraction. But those encounters, no matter how they end up, are always shitty. As far as the adrenaline and the stress and the anxiety and all that kind of stuff. So
You must have been coming from Livingston County. You don't normally travel that way to get to the show.
I was in a meeting in Lansing.
Ah.
you're lucky they didn't swab you.
Well, I would have refused, but I thought they might go there. I refused to take further. He took his pen and wanted to see my eyes go back and forth, whatever. I did that. He asked me to come out of the car. I originally refused, but he said, "Hey, we saw you go over the line, and make sure you're not, messed up or anything." I said, "Okay, I'll do this to let you know that I am not messed up in any way." And then he's like, "Okay, mind if I do this and do that?" I said, "No. I'm good for enough to let you know that I'm okay. I'm not in for all this other stuff. I did not consent to a search or anything else." I said, "Okay, sit back in the car and I'll be right there." And it didn't take long. Came back out and gave me the ticket for 5 over. So I thought they might retaliate a little bit. They were definitely not happy when I refused the search and that kind of stuff, but it ended up not being too extra ridiculous after that, but still shaken up from it a little bit.
It's precisely why they gave you the ticket too, is because you refused. But if you didn't refuse, who knows what happened?
Well, they're trying to build that database, so probably a swab and then maybe a trip to the hospital, have a blood test, either confirm or deny the results of the swab. That's
I never would have taken the swab in the first place. So
yeah.
Half the stuff they do
suggest refusing it, but they never got to that point. They never suggested I take it or anything. It's just it was probably a relatively straightforward encounter by a lot of people's measure, but anytime I have some interaction, and I know a lot of people here listening and on this panel understand.
Most people in general.
Yeah, most people in general. Anytime there's kind of a cop even around, it's a little stressful.
All your
so, yeah.
antibodies release in your body.
Right.
But I have to say the guy,
That
ultimately
stress.
did a good job. I mean, I was going 5 over. In fact, I was going 10 over, and and he let the refusal of the search and all that kind of stuff just go without giving me any extra shit. I mean, he shouldn't have, but they do sometimes, and suppose they probably did a pretty decent job. Doesn't make me any less kind of shaken up over it, but I'm glad that that's over and I got here just in time.
Well, way to give credit where credit's due, though, because most of us on this call, I can't speak for everyone, have had police encounters that didn't always go that well. So,
right. And the second car showed up. That did not make my nerves feel any better. That type of stuff. But hey, it all kind of came together, and I'll have to pay a civil infraction fine now of somewhere between $100 and $300. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I don't like it, but I'll take it. So anyway, I know that today Rick is going to do some news, and I think there's time to do that into the show a little bit. I think we should have some anticipation and know that we got a really awesome newscast coming up on this show.
I think there'll be some stuff that we enjoy hearing. I think there is.
I'm looking forward to it. I know one thing that I know one thing that should make the list. Probably, maybe we'll get into a little bit more after Rick brings it up, possibly with his news. But there was just a bill introduced concerning caregivers. Another whack at caregivers. I mean, and you see this coming from many different ways, many different angles. One is in the form of legislation, and it would.
Saw it like right after Medical Mondays last night.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, this would create a scenario where caregivers couldn't just grow for their patients at their home. They'd have to jump through some hoops. The locals would have to approve it and opt in, maybe in some respect, for caregivers to be able to do that. It would have no bearing, I don't think, on a rec person growing for themselves or for just a patient growing their own plants, but it could compromise caregivers. The same question's been taken to the Supreme Court a couple of times and lost. There's a DeRuyter case, which is slightly different, which, started heading back in that direction a little bit, which was concerning. And, it's never cool when these things get introduced. We don't think that it's going to get the support that it needs to pass, but the legislature has surprised us in the past and has come together and have collectively done stupid things, especially on the cannabis issue. So
oftentimes it takes 2 or 3 times to get some of their bad stuff done, Jamie. We've seen that before, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we should be concerned. And I know that Zara put out a message encouraging people to contact their representatives and senators, and we support that and suggest that be done. I think the Ohm of Medicine is sponsoring a way of doing that. I saw some stuff posted there.
I shared a good meme of theirs. You can certainly go on Ohm's Facebook page and copy that. That includes all the contact info too.
Yep. And so, I know this is a little rhetorical again, a little bit, but why not discuss, we've achieved a lot of different things throughout the course of this movement in the last decade. And the movement goes beyond the last decade, but let's take that time when we have the MMMA and commercial programs for medical, passage of the MRTMA, some easing up in some areas that were once really restrictive, and we're moving forward. Do we ever get to the point where we say, it's okay to peel some of this back, it's okay to not allow some of this or to prohibit some of this because we got so much else going on, so much covered? In other words, caregivers aren't as important because the patient can just go to a store now. Do we really have a reason to peel anything back that we've achieved? Anyway, Rick, what do you think about that?
I'll tell you what I think. There may come a time where there are redundancies in law, and sometimes there's so much overlap that some systems may seem antiquated and not useful anymore. We ain't there yet, people. Look, the legalized cannabis industry is experiencing a product shortage. They're just now severing themselves from caregiver cannabis. The legacy market, some people call the black market, is still a much larger portion of the cannabis sales than the legalized market is. We still need the medical program, and we're going to need it for quite some time. We're going to need it to protect juvenile use. Anyone under 21 that has a medical reason needs the medical program in order to do that. There are some employment situations and some court situations where having a medical card is advantageous to you. I know some people that have said they were allowed to use cannabis on probation only because they possessed a medical card, not because it was an adult use state any longer. So there's lots of reasons to maintain that program. And if there's some kind of a paring or trimming of those responsibilities, it would only come after they've really been demonstrated for a long time to no longer be useful. But Derek Gauci, you're trying to hide from the camera. You were the last one here, the first one question. DG, thanks for showing up at Tawas for our highway cleanup this last week too. What do you think about that? Should we be considering peeling back some of the protections for caregivers and patients in light of the fact we've got legalization now?
Well, I don't. The way that you asked the question makes me feel like I'm going to answer it wrong. I don't think you should take away any of the current caregiver rights. Does that make it clear?
It does.
I like my caregivers, especially because the weed seems to be pretty good. I also like dispensary stuff. I'm not really sure where you guys all sit on it. Interested to find out. Yeah, most of the caregivers I've come across have done nothing but helped.
Right. I think that the intent, when you're talking about the purity of purpose, you can't beat a caregiver over a commercialized person any day. And of course, the feedback that you get when you need a special strain, a caregiver can grow 1 or 2 plants for you, whereas that's just not available in a commercial situation. Jim Salame, we've got that Ohm of Medicine notice that came out reminding people about this bad bill. What's your opinion about the question before us? Are we ready to start rolling back some of those patient and caregiver regulations at this point?
I don't think ever. I mean, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think we have to look at it medically and continue that discussion and continue tests and continue educating people about that aspect of it, because I think that's one of the most important parts of cannabis is the fact that it does help your system in your body. I also have experience seeing caregivers really cater to people's needs and be able to make a certain type of oil or really hone in on something for somebody's treatment. And that's really important too. You get that sort of care. And right now, like you said, this industry has got a shortage in some cases. And you almost don't even see any CBD products. I mean, you do see them, but we need more of that. And I think caregivers also provide that sort of avenue for people. And I'm not talking about hemp-related CBD. I'm talking about more of the flower cannabis sativa CBD.
In our rush to embrace legalization, we do oftentimes step over the bodies of the patients, the people that, first of all, gave us the reason to regulate and right-size our laws in the first place. Now, folks like us here at Jazz Cabbage Cafe, we never forget the patients because we is the patients. But the fact is, people chase money, and legalization's where the money's at. Berg, you're on the ground level of everything that's going on in cannabis in Detroit, Wayne County. You know what's happening. Are people there really interested in maintaining their medical card status now that they've got rec? And is it time for us maybe to think about putting that whole thing into the history books?
I mean, I think more people need to get their card. I mean, I know several people who have, since rec has went on in Michigan, that have laxed off on their card and didn't get their card renewed and everything. And I'm still trying to, get it in their head that they need a card, for multiple reasons, But as far as the caregiver, thing goes, I think we're always going to need caregivers. I mean, weren't they trying to put a bill in like this before? And it was like, I don't even think it was a whole week since rec went through that they were trying to do this.
The caregiver system tried to get was attacked in the first year after the MMA was passed.
In lame duck after the November election, Jamie knows in 2018, between the November 6th election in 2018 and the end of session on December 13 that year, they introduced bills and tried to advance bills that would have radically changed the medical program, including a change in the way caregivers are, including taking away the ability to caregive for more than one patient.
The 2012 stuff, we had a fight to bring that back to the point where it didn't just kill the entire program. But also, exactly. I'm talking about the Kuipers bill, which would replace the caregiver system with an oligopoly. And that was 10 years ago or longer.
That was Wayne Kuipers, the Kuipers, Cropsey, Van Workum, and Kahn package of bills was the first real attempt to screw with the cannabis industry, and that was introduced in the 2010 session. Right. Jamie's got a good memory because that was a real effort right off the bat to try and gut the deer, as they sometimes say.
And not even through the legislature, through different state department actions and various things. The caregiver system just keeps on getting shit on.
Now, Colin MacDougall, you're the only one we haven't asked about this yet, and your opinion is very important. You've been in the retail world, you've been in the consumer world, you've been in the world of lawmaking. Tell us a little bit about what you think. What's the likelihood that the legislature is going to mess with the medical program, and is it time for us to talk about that?
Yeah, so I was thinking this bill today was more of like just kind of a show for this one state representative. Like maybe like he could put it out there to be like get the anti-group to like rally around him. And in a way, I feel like it's not gonna go very far at all, and nor are we ready for any of that stuff. In fact, just because like we got cut off recently from the caregiver supply, there's like shortages across the state, especially with like distillate carts and whatnot. I mean, I think that the market in the legal market and the medical market still aren't like fully mature or anything. I think it's important for patients to renew their card, especially people who need it, and pay, if you really want to start learning how to grow, you should probably get a patient card, at least to start off with your, it's 420 right now.
It is, and you should get a patient card to start off, but it's 420. Jamie, did you have something special planned for 420 like you usually do?
Well, you know
we don't actually have
of course
anything.
not. Of course, I came in with no time to plan anything, but I do know
What a good setup I gave you.
that Derek Gauci did slide by our highway cleanup on Saturday, and he did some great filming, did some interviews, and captured what was going on. And he put together a short video, and it's not that long. It's not long enough to go take a break, but I certainly would like to check it out, and maybe now would be a good time for that. I think we're going to be joined by Razor Ray Reyes
Looks like it.
right at 420.
Of course.
That's awesome. Yep, I definitely.
Mindlessly came in without a mask, and then caught himself and threw the mask on. So a little
Good. All right, Gauci, what do you got for us?
Ray.
What's up, Razor? All right, so yeah, it was awesome. I was able to quickly cruise by, spot you guys on the side of the freeway. I was with family. I made it. It was a real quick in and out, but we were able to put together something. Hoping that you like it. Let me see if I can find it here.
It's not getting 3.
We're 24.
Hold on, man. There we go.
This is Jamie Lowell with the Botanical Company, and we are sponsoring Northeast Michigan Normal and their annual highway cleanup. We're on US 23, a little over a mile or so from the store, and we are picking up lots of garbage. We are here to pick up the trash that people throw out. Tons and tons of cigarette butts. It's just ridiculous. It's good stuff. Always great to help the environment, and man, there needs it around here. US 23 is a very busy road. A lot of folks travel not always as respectful of the environment as they should be. We like to keep the environment clean, and this is one way we can do that. Hopefully show people that we're not just a bunch of high-ends. We're a bunch of hippies that care about the universe.
That's all, man. That's your 420.
Right on.
That's so dope. I love that.
And then Razor Ray was there that day too, jamming in the lobby.
That was a
for
lot of
our
fun.
patrons.
Where's the lobby?
He had
Nice
to go
job,
out
Derek.
of the 2-1 to be outside. The area
Yeah,
where
Derek,
the
you missed the food, the drinks.
Yeah, I was
all
gonna
kinds of
come outside, but no outlet.
I
Well, it wasn't a building, but you're in a hot area though.
Oh, that's right. It was
Yeah.
super mad hot. I was
It was
like, you know what? I'm gonna keep
a little sunny.
49-year-old
So
sack cooler in the lobby.
you're not even 50 yet, man. Your youth should be able to take you through.
Damn, I knew I should have went in there. I think I saw your van out back too.
It
Yeah.
was my little white.
His little Avio.
Like,
No, he wasn't up there when you were around, Derek. You were there.
I would have
earlier.
seen you, bro. I'd have been
Came
like,
late.
"What's up, bro?
Yeah, no. So, Derek, there was a talk about a special contest or some kind of submission that they were doing on a particular that particular day.
Day in
Did you
the life
manage?
July 25th or something. Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. Did you manage to submit your footage to that particular thing?
No, I wasn't actually out there collecting it all for that. So sorry for disappointing you guys with that one. But
Okay.
nope, I was just out there. I got inspired by Jamie's post about the roadside cleanup. I thought it was pretty cool. I wanted to also have an excuse to get the family up north. So it all worked out simultaneous. It was beautiful.
You picked a good weekend, man. It was beautiful up there.
It
Yep.
inspired me to take a shower. It was
Yeah.
cool.
I did not take a shower all weekend. And actually, that was another reason I didn't really want to stick around too late.
But you did jump into the PFAS pool though
Oh, you jumped into the PFAS pool?
to cool off, I'm sure.
I think I did. What is it?
Well, then that was a bad.
PFAS is the chemicals that were being used by the Air Force for years up there to try to get ice off of the wings of the airplanes, and it just got into the groundwater over years. And
Some of the inland lakes are sometimes referred to as PFAS pools, right?
Total dick
Yeah.
move. Those
it was a
guys are-
dick move. I'm
Those
sure they
guys-
they weren't conspiring to contaminate all those things, but they certainly did.
Shut
You don't
up.
have any tingles where you're not supposed to have tingles, do you? I mean,
Oh,
Sometimes.
you don't have to answer that if you really don't want to.
Yes.
Hey, so while I'm thinking about it today, I don't think we mentioned it at the front of the show. We are going to have two really good, besides Rick's awesome news, and besides our awesome banter, we're going to have
Yeah, it's gonna be cocky.
two more awesome guests. The candidate for Wayne County prosecutor, Victoria Burton Harris,
Yes.
and
Harris.
and then another candidate for state house seat. This time, District 72, which is on the west side of the state.
What's that?
Lily Chang Schulting is
What's
going to
up?
join us, hopefully, like in a few minutes here. Keep an eye on the Zoom and see when that might go down. And we'll have a couple more people here to talk about and determine if and how much they support our movement and what else that they are campaigning on. As we do. And this is tied in well with some of the actions that we're taking with the Democratic Cannabis Caucus. And in this particular project, Rick does has kind of headed it up.
That has got some
And,
innuendo.
And we are, in a short period of time, getting the group, still kind of working on getting the group together, but wanting to be active a little bit, not having time to send out surveys and interview everybody personally, looking out for people who have been supportive on record for our issue, and simply recommending them in this primary scenario. And then after the primaries, we'll do it again more formally and put it out. But hey, Rick was able to get in there and get this stuff going for us, and the caucus got behind it. So we are going to put out some recommendations before the primaries, and some of these interviews help out with that.
Call it something else other than caucus. It just sounds so,
Fun to say.
it's so fun to say.
Penises.
Caucus, penises, dickus.
Hey, Rick, I really liked your background. I'm sorry you changed
You
it.
gotta
Oh, I'm going to do the news coming up, and I want to have a nice background for the news. But I'm going
Okay.
back to the mushroom forest right after.
A respectable candidate's coming on,
a
so your
respectable
potty
candidate.
mouth should stop.
Crank it down to a G13.
Okay.
Crank it down to a Gorilla Glue 4 level, all right? Not a Gorilla Glue
Okay.
10. Gorilla
Okay.
Glue 4.
If everything worked out properly, we should be joined by our first guest, who is a candidate for State House Representative District 72. And please correct me if I get this wrong, but Lily Chang Schulting.
Yes, that's perfect. Thanks.
Good.
Perfect. He's good.
And I know that in addition to being a candidate, you are a lawyer, and I believe on the west side of the state. And please feel free to introduce yourself a little bit more. Let us know where you stand on our issue in terms of cannabis reform, and the other issues that you're campaigning on.
Yes. So I am Lily Chang Schulting, and I am running for state representative in District 72, which is in Greater Grand Rapids, mainly Kentwood down to Wayland and the area in between. I am running as a proven human rights advocate in Greater Grand Rapids, and many people have known my work in this area, and that's why I have a long list of community leaders, public officials, and the Sierra Club, the
Good
Michigan
endorsements. I
Democratic
noticed that
Party.
too. Yep, I was
What's
looking
that?
at- I said I noticed that you had some good endorsements when I was looking at your Facebook page.
Oh, well, thanks. Yes. And yeah, thank you. And the MDP, Michigan Democratic Party's Progressive Caucus, which asked me many questions about marijuana, and the Kent County Black Caucus as well. And yeah, I really appreciate that the people on
They can't handle that.
in these organizations know my work in this area as a human rights advocate.
Does that have to do with your legal practice? Are you a civil rights attorney, criminal defense attorney?
Yeah, actually, I had not practiced since I had children, and so I have two children. I have an older child who's 19, and a younger one who's 16, and my younger son, my younger child, he actually has severe autism, so he's nonverbal at the moment, and then I became a disability advocate about 6 years ago when there were cuts to special education to his school. And therefore, I brushed off my attorney skills and transformed them to become a disability advocate. And along the way, I created the Disability A Team of West Michigan. I also created a movement that resulted in 9 special education schools changing management from the local district of Grand Rapids at the time to Kent County ISD. And Kent County has a lot more funding. They manage 20 school districts. And as a result, thousands of students and teachers have been very happy with the changes. Because it just meant a lot more therapists, computer equipment, extended school year, which is year school in the summers. And yeah, so I figured if I have been able to do this much change locally and at the grassroots level, imagine what I can do statewide. And that is one of the reasons why I am running, to be able to affect change for people who have disabilities, people who are marginalized, people of color, people who are vulnerable in any way.
So obviously cannabis crosses over to that list. You just explained. And we also know that in Kent County, I mean, Grand Rapids might be a little bit of an oasis, but it's generally really conservative and strict when it comes to, or has traditionally been when it comes to cannabis. What types of things are you hoping, do you notice as an issue there, and that you'd like to, in terms of cannabis, that you'd hope to see improved upon?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think since we have passed the laws for cannabis, that we want to make sure that it can be regulated like alcohol. We want to also make it more available to children with disabilities who, that they can have access to cannabis as well.
Sure.
And
without the stigmas and stuff like that, right?
I'm sorry?
I said yes, that, many children really could use cannabis in treatment for various conditions. We'd like to be able to do that and have that readily happen for people without any additional issues or stigmas or anything like that.
I think that
and without jumping a lot of hurdles.
Yeah,
Sure.
and sometimes children in schools, they can't be administered their
Right,
medicine
and
because
some laws have
it's
changed in other states to allow that, and,
Yeah.
and some places in Michigan should be looking at that too, right?
Yeah, and that is important. I mean, we got to see where the problems are and what the needs of the community is, and especially the needs of people who are the most vulnerable, and how can we help them obtain access without them having to jump a lot of hurdles. And
Yeah, we're concerned that-
similarly, the business side of things and small businesses, and how people should be able to, small businesses and local businesses should be able to be in the business of cannabis with more easily.
Right. Right on. I
What
agree.
are the barriers to access that you currently see in the jurisdiction you're looking to have a position in?
Access for small businesses, you mean, or access by consumers?
Well,
Or
access
both?
by consumers, which I think is by extension a conversation about access to business models, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for business models, we know that the businesses that do have access to sell marijuana or cannabis is generally not local, and often from out of state. And as far as consumers, it's limited to certain areas. I mean, Grand Rapids, it's easier to obtain cannabis, not as much in the surrounding areas of Grand Rapids, the suburbs.
Yes.
Excellent. So, just I guess for a bit of information before you came on, we were discussing there's a bill that was recently introduced that would make it more difficult for caregivers to grow for their patients because the area they live in would have to have approved it or opted in to allow that type of activity. And we understand that there's other things that are now allowed. Stores are starting to come in a little bit more. You're in an area where it's not, as you just described, it's not flourishing as much as it is in some other places. And we just don't think that there's any reason to peel back anything that's been achieved as far as, the ability to engage in cannabis activity. And if you make it into the position that you're seeking in the state house, we would like to believe that you would protect, along with the other lawmakers who are like-minded, the progress that we made in this arena and not be involved in helping to peel it back. Do you think you would take that position?
Yes,
Something like this?
I would absolutely be in favor and support making access to cannabis available.
Right. So making it easier, but not peeling it back or cutting
Right.
off channels that currently exist. I
Yes.
appreciate it.
Make it.
I know you're an advocate for child use, and of course, caregivers are intricate in the child use an application of cannabis. No one else is allowed to be a caregiver for a sick child other than their parents themselves. And if we were to ban caregiving in residential areas, those parents with sick children would functionally have no way to be able to provide the continued medical treatment that their child needs. And it would also inhibit other children from being able to take that treatment method as well. So with your stated objective of trying to ease those type of situations to make it more easily for children to have access to cannabis under a doctor's supervision, I mean, that doesn't seem like those two things would be in parity.
Right. I agree. In the situation there, for example, and I say make it more broad instead of more restrictive, perhaps if there was some intention of allowing others beside just the parent to be a caregiver for somebody for some functional reason, or guardian for some functional reason, that should be allowed, so that it then helps get the child to get the medicine that they need. As it is, as stated, as it is now, one of the parents or guardian has to be the caregiver. So if they can't go for any reason, or if they're cut off, they have to go purchase it commercially or hope that it's gifted from somebody else. You can't rely on that.
Yeah. And if a child needs it, then their caregiver should be anyone who would be able to take care of that child and should be able to provide cannabis as needed.
It currently takes 2 physicians to certify a child, whereas it only takes a single physician to certify an adult. It oftentimes is a difficult hurdle for parents to jump over having that second certification. If there was to be a modification to the law, which I think is, I'm not interested in having us open up the law to a 3/4 supermajority vote, but if we did, that would be a modification that would benefit children and their sick parents.
I agree. I agree. That's important. It's important to remove that hurdle and to make it easier for parents and the children's pediatricians to be able to provide what the children need in terms of cannabis, if that's a solution. And I will advocate greatly for that. I mean, I think that is, I feel, in my wheelhouse to be able to advocate for children with disabilities and to advocate not just legislators who are Democrats, but also Republicans as well, that we can focus on the needs of the children first and foremost.
Historically, mothers with sick children are the testimonies that have made, in my opinion, made the most difference when the legislature's been considering pro-medical cannabis bills. We have not had, to my knowledge, a legislator with your particular family history, and hopefully you'll be able to wield that experience as a way to really make your point more forcefully with some of those conservatives who just don't seem to want to get on the cannabis train.
Right. Well, thank you. And I think I will be able to for many reasons. One is part of my legal skills is negotiating and negotiating for change. And another is that I did run in 2018 for State Board of Education, and I had created many contacts on the other side of the state, the east side. And I think we need to all work together. And and when it comes to the issues itself, I feel that what is in my background is important. My experience as a parent of a child with disabilities. And for that reason, I've been talking with many Republicans, and for that matter, who are supporting me because they understand the importance of this issue.
Right on. And it is something that finds itself involved with everything. It crosses the political spectrum. It does find itself in the other issues that you care about, disproportionate treatment to people, people being vulnerable. It's been used as the low-hanging fruit to cause all types of chaos. And sometimes people get into their elected position and it becomes less prioritized. But I kind of believe it should be remembered that it's connected to all these very important issues that ought not be prioritized for any reason.
I agree. It's very important, and it's a very important source to consider. Anything that helps children is important to consider. And and it doesn't have to, we should consider all types of medicine.
Is your district traditionally vote Republican in this particular representative seat, or have you seen success on the Democratic Party for this particular spot?
It has been traditionally more Republican in this district. It is moving more blue, and as a result, this may be one of the districts which the State House Dems are targeting.
So it might get flipped real good. I was going to ask you if you had any good indication on where you stand in the race. Are you having a good chance of flipping that seat?
Well, I think if I win on August 4th, I think I stand a very good chance.
You have to get through the primary first, right?
Yeah, and that's what I say is that if people really want to turn this district blue, I'm the person who has the experience as a human rights advocate, whether for people with disabilities or communities of color. And these are important issues for people from across the political spectrum.
Right.
And that's what it takes to win.
Feel free to let us know about anything else that you need to have included in this discussion, and where people could get a hold of you, get to your site, perhaps help you out, donate, volunteer, whatever, get connected in any way if they'd like to help support your campaign.
Thanks so much. Yes, well, if I would definitely appreciate and am thankful for everyone thinking about what are the needs of not of our communities, our society, and our state, and that we are now in a time of where we face many deep social and racial problems. And I appreciate how everyone is coming together, that we're thinking of solutions. And so thank you for envisioning what we can do together to address the needs of people who are the most vulnerable, including children with disabilities and people of color. And if anybody would like to join me, which I would greatly appreciate, that would be come to my website, and it is www.lily, LILYFOR, Michigan spelled out, MICHIGAN.com, lilyformichigan.com.
Okay.
And my Facebook is also the same. You can look up Lily for State Rep. And that is my campaign page. And that may be the most comprehensive source of information for me in my position.
Really do hope that your message and the endorsements and your vision can all come together and make it into the state house and represent your district.
Thank you, and thanks so much. Yeah, and if anybody could visit my website or Facebook page, I would greatly appreciate any help, because I think we have a strong chance of winning, but we need to get over that hurdle.
Right on. Lily?
And in order to be able to accomplish our goals.
I agree. lilyformichigan.com.
Mhm.
And same Lily for Michigan Facebook page as well.
Mhm.
So hope that people listening, particularly those in the district who would like to help out, although candidates with Lily's perspective and willingness to act on our issue can be supported by anybody anywhere, and the more people like that in decision-making capacity, the better all the way around we are, and able to kind of move forward with some of these issues. So definitely support you from Detroit, and I'd like to see you be successful first August 4th and then in November.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Really, really appreciate you coming on, and we'll talk to you again later and get an update in a few weeks.
That sounds terrific. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Lily.
Take care. Okay, bye.
Lily for State House Representative in District 72. I think another reasonable voice for our issue and other issues that could possibly join the legislature. And we've now been able to interview a few people like that, and it would be great to get a nice percentage of people who think like that progressively, I guess. And
we have a great potential crop of representatives. When you talk about flipping the House, because right now the House and Senate in Michigan are both controlled by Republicans for our watchers from out of state. So that would be a big coup for us to be able to do that here in 2020.
I agree. In 2022, the gerrymandering fixes will begin, and the results of that will hopefully and should be better than the results of the decision makers that come from the gerrymandered districts.
Yep.
So we have a good one. And I'm glad that we got somebody who represented the other side of the state. I mean, it's no matter where, if somebody who wants to get into a state house, seat and has that kind of energy and insight into issues and stuff like that, I'd like to see them win. But it was nice to get somebody on the other side of the state to kind of represent that field a little bit. We've been concentrating over here. So I'm glad that worked out. And later on, we'll have the the prosecutor, the candidate for prosecutor of Wayne County. And of course, the last couple of weeks, we've had the candidate for Washtenaw County and for Oakland County. And you can imagine if you got this tri-county area with 3 progressive prosecutors like that, that could be a significant difference in the, in this region as far as how, the local police handle things and just a different, mindset when it comes to cannabis and other issues. I'd really like to see that happen. Of course, we believe many candidates, are going to go do this, and then sometimes there's some slowdown when office is actually achieved. So we have to wade through all these things, but it is consistently getting better all the way around, I think. So what time is it, by the way? And I feel weird because I am not affected by cannabis.
4:49. 4:49.
4:49. Maybe we could drum up a video of some kind, or maybe I just take this thing outside. I get some cannabis in my system.
Maybe I just do the news. How's that?
Yeah, but I can hear the news. My point is, when I have a bunch of cannabis.
Well, bring your phone outside.
Right. Okay, so I might bring the phone outside and listen to Rick do the news while I'm consuming cannabis.
Your cannabis content determines my news. Nice. Okay. Nice little power struggle. Let's go. Let's go.
No, it's pretty straightforward. My cannabinoid levels have to be a certain thing in order for this to work, though. So
just keep it on mute until you go outside, and you can talk into it. I got a lighter somewhere. But if you want to do the news, I'll listen for now, Rick.
Why is Jamie taking his
For now, Rick.
his phone?
He's going outside to listen to the news.
Is that what he did? Well, all right. If that's how it's going to be, if that's the way you guys are going to play this, that's fine. All right.
In a way, it's recording still on this thing here.
I'm still here.
I know. It's still broadcasted live, regardless of Jamie's cannabinoid status. I know.
You can unmute your phone now.
Yeah. All right, so let's do this
Right,
then.
my cannabinoid status has an effect on many things.
That was really fast.
Officially ready for the news. Officially ready for the news.
Go back on mute. I hear the street noise from your phone, man. All right, cool. So let's do this thing. It is the Cannabis News, July 28th, 2020. Let's begin. Don't tussle with Twitter or Facebook. Facebook has deleted the personal account of rapper Wiley after he shared abusive posts aimed at Jewish critics. His comments came after an anti-Semitic tirade on Twitter on Friday. That from the BBC, also from the BBC. Donald Trump Jr., suspended from tweeting after posting some bunk about COVID-19? The action follows a post by Donald Trump Jr. containing a video clip discussing the benefits of hydrochloroquine. Some, including President Trump, had suggested the anti-malarial drug works as a preventative measure against coronavirus, despite medical studies indicating the contrary. Twitter said the post violates its COVID-19 misinformation rules. Of course, Donnie Jr. can still browse Twitter and send direct messages in the interim. Here's another real short, too. How many legalized cannabis states do we have in America? 11. Alaska, Colorado, Illinois, Michigan, Vermont, Washington, Nevada, Maine, California, Massachusetts, and Oregon, but also the District of Columbia, Guam, and the Commonwealth of the North Mariana Islands, right? Now, the only territory, Virgin Islands, has a medical program, but American Samoa, pretty much nothing there. What's up with you Samoans? Get with the program. Come on now.
Guam was medical.
Yeah. Now, stop talking. I told you mute your phone. There you go. Speaking to a group of lawmakers this week, an official from the White House's anti-drug office acknowledged that in Colorado and other states that have legalized marijuana for adults, consumption of cannabis by teens has fallen, contrary to fears expressed by prohibitionists. Consumption of cannabis by teens has fallen, says the White House's anti-drug office. The comments came during a wide-ranging presentation on the impact of cannabis legalization to a committee of North Dakota lawmakers on Wednesday, and that panel is currently engaged in an interim study of the issue while the legislature is out of session and will make a report later this year. That comes to us from Marijuana Moment. The feds should not spend money in states to prosecute state legal cannabis use. Later this month, members of the House will debate a relatively inconspicuous appropriations amendment that seeks to take out one single word from the Commerce, Justice, Science, and Related Agencies Appropriations Bill. They want to eliminate the word marijuana from the prohibition against the federal government pursuing state legal cannabis activity. That would give the same shield to adult use industry that has been experienced by the medical industry in the states that have adopted those programs. Since 2014, members of Congress have passed annual spending bills that have included a provision protecting those who engage in state-sanctioned use and dispensing of cannabis from federal prosecution by the DOJ by prohibiting them from using federal funds, from implementing state laws, or impeding state laws. Now, this new Blumenauer-McClintock-Norton amendment expands those protections to include the adult use of marijuana. Here's already included in the fiscal year 2020 Financial Services and General Government Appropriations Bill. Here's 3 other important components pertaining to cannabis that are going to go through. One of them, fairness and federal drug testing report language, which would prevent federal government employees from being denied employment from participating in state legal cannabis programs. Yay! The bill additionally includes provisions to provide better banking access to state-licensed marijuana businesses and to remove the current rider that prevents District of Columbia from enacting a regulated adult-use cannabis market. But also, in the 2021 Labor, Health, and Human Services Appropriations Bill, a new amendment's been added that would prevent the Department of Education from using federal funds to penalize institutions of higher education for participating in or preparing to engage in clinical cannabis research projects. You go, get those things passed. Here's a great story from Michigan, from High Times. The Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians announced just Friday that it reached an agreement with vertically integrated Loom Cannabis Company to open a retail cannabis dispensary on tribal land in the Upper Peninsula. That would open an adult-use cannabis retailer on tribal lands near the Canadian border. Under the partnership, Loom would offer more than 20 strains of cannabis flower and other products, including a line of CBD products, to members of what's called the largest Native American tribe east of the Mississippi and the visitors to that community. Under the new partnership, Loom plans to open 5 additional retail cannabis stores on tribal lands over the next 2 years. They currently operate 10 adult-use marijuana dispensaries in the state, and Loom is based in Troy. Also, from High Times, cannabis cultivators in Michigan now have the right to produce more than 500,000 plants, according to licensing programs from the medical and adult-use industries. As of July 13, medical and adult-use cannabis cultivators licensed to grow 511,500 plants. That's an increase of 20% from only June 1st, when there was 426,000 cannabis plants under license. The number of licensed plants, of course, doesn't include clones, which are plants described as less than 8 inches tall. So there could be more than that actually within the cannabis industry itself. The 16,000 plants are what just Kevin Kuthi of Loom said that they were licensed for, and they do most of that as licensing, 16,000. Here's another story from Michigan. Gobble, gobble, gobble. Less than a week after inking a $35 million agreement to purchase California-based cannabis company Platinum Vape, Toronto's Red, White, and Bloom announced Monday plans to acquire Michigan's Pharmaco. Now, Red, White, and Blue said it exercised its right to acquire 100% of Pharmaco, and of course that was worth about $20 million. Pharmaco, you may know them in Michigan as the Roots dispensary line. Red, White, and Blue was formed by Michigan and Title Royalty Company's merger. Of course, the total economic impact of our cannabis industry could reach $7.9 billion over the next 5 years. Red, White, and Bloom currently has 660 employees. But here's what really gets interesting. They also recently struck that licensing deal with High Times Holding Corporation, where they were going to give them like 11 or 12 stores in Michigan. By taking over the Roots group, it looks like they might be able to pull that off. Final story of the day. This is one you'll really like, because we don't really like this guy. From Mears, the Supreme Court says the suit seeking Schuette emails can continue. That's correct. Bill Schuette, in what might be a nice telling tale to Donald Trump, Bill Schuette, 3.5 years after, even after he's out of his office for almost 2 years now, still facing lawsuits. The Michigan Supreme Court gave new life to Progress Michigan's lawsuit against Schutte because he denied public records requests for emails sent from 21 members of his staff from their personal computers. And that's the way you do it when you want to hide stuff. The Michigan Court of Appeals held that Progress Michigan's complaint was invalid, but the Supreme Court said, no, it certainly is. Progress Michigan alleged information received through its FOIA request showed numerous examples of Schutte and his staff using private email accounts to conduct public business. That's a no-no. A court of claims judge declined to dismiss the case. Schutte appealed. Here's the important thing. In smacking Schutte down, out of the 7 Supreme Court justices, 5 Supreme Court justices said yes, 2 did not vote, and 0 voted against the program. And in addition to those 5 that said yes, 2 justices wrote concurring opinions. That's a very strong sign that government cannot conceal its activities just by using personal servers. Hillary Clinton. All right, that's the cannabis news for today. It's July 28th, 2020. I'm Rick Thompson. Thanks for listening. Jamie, let's see what you got. Come on, mister.
Good stuff. And I'm feeling a lot better. So combination of those things were really good. Appreciate it.
We're all happy that you're feeling better.
That's what it was all about.
I got a tingling sensation now that I know that you're feeling better, sir.
Yep. So, fuck Schutte. I'm really happy that stuff's going on. And the guy was a dick. He was obviously corrupted. He was an obstructionist to everything we tried to do. So I certainly don't mind if he's got to be subject to revealing stuff that he did in an official public capacity.
I have to say, and this is with modesty, okay? It's going to sound like it's not, but this is with modesty. If those emails that they recover from those 21 people cover some of the discussions they had during the cannabis era, it's very possible Jamie and I could have been actually named by individual names in some of those emails. At that particular time, as the public relations director for MAC, I was in the news all the time. Jamie, as one of the MAC members, was very high profile, the only guy not to get rated out of our original 5. I mean, we were at the apex of media interest at that time, Jay.
Yeah, it's all true. And we made a big deal about Schutte handing over our records. We talked about this last week or the week before, the story a little bit more, but when he started right off after obtaining office, trying to hand over private patient records to the feds for their investigation, there's been a clash, and we've been known to be in opposition of him ever since.
Well, we were the most visible, some of the most visible opponents to those legislative attempts we talked about, Kuipers, Kahn, Van Workum, and Cropsey bills, in 2010, aimed at totally submarining the medical program before it even got started. We were sign in hand. Chuck Ream, we were out there vocally opposing Bill Schutte. There's great footage. Bill Schutte had to move a campaign rally from inside to outside at a Republican headquarters, so we found out about it, and a bunch of us got there. And there's the easement between the sidewalk and the road, which is public property, and we were all on there, and we were shouting loud, and their Schutteites were trying to drown us out. Jamie, I believe, was saying, fuck Bill Schutte, pretty loud, actually, at some point, if I remember correctly. I'm pretty sure Chuck Ream was saying something similar, too, as was I.
What I was saying is I was regurgitating what Chuck told me, which was stop crime, not sick people. And that's what I was screaming. In fact, it's still on YouTube and MLive or Ann Arbor News YouTube channel. Every time he tried to speak, it was, stop crime, not sick people. And we drowned him out.
So at that point, again, recognizable faces in a very, very upfront, in-your-face kind of a way, and then he becomes Attorney General. So yeah, he may have been chatting about us a little bit.
And I remember,
boy, that was a good day. That was a good day.
There was. There have been in which emails have come back, and in which names have shown up. And it was last year or so I saw some FOIA emails from Don Bailey, and he was concerned about, quote, the Rick Thompsons.
Oh Oh,
causing problems.
I'm a culture personality, apparently.
I am Rick Thompson.
I
Everybody
remember,
should play it.
who'd we get? We got together to do that for
Carruthers.
I Am Earl Carruthers. Right, yes.
He was totally fucked with by the system, so that was kind of
Awesome.
a.
We did a solidarity video for Earl where we all said, I can see some of me in Earl, and Earl's just the guy of the world. I am Earl Carruthers. When you're punishing him, you're punishing me, kind of a thing. And it was powerful.
They didn't end up using it, but they did put something out. It was good.
It was powerful. Arr.
It's all good.
It was. When's our next guest coming on, Jerry?
5:15 is the schedule. What time is it now?
Yeah, we're still doing okay.
5:04. So,
So
should be coming on.
So I love this whole concept of the Native American tribe getting involved with the cannabis industry. Having to partner with somebody instead of being able to do it on their own. I suppose that makes sense. Certainly, you don't want to have to learn this industry from the ground up because there's a lot of trial and error and there's a lot of falling down. So if you partner with somebody who's already got a handle on it, then that makes your venture more successful. So I'm glad to see that's happening. I don't know that that's happening in other states. That I'm not sure how revolutionary that particular story is.
I know that there's been discussions and attempts and things like that. Whether or not it's actually going on in other states, I really don't know. I can't say that I pay that much attention unless it's
hopefully the
connected to us
corporations
or otherwise bigger news.
Remediate their weed.
Say it again, Berg.
I said, hopefully these corporations don't show them how to remediate their weed or anything.
Well, they're still state licensed, so they still have to go through that same testing process like we talked about on your show last night.
Yeah, for those standards are fucked up, and I think during the news, Rick, you mentioned all the cannabis that had to be destroyed. 1 point something million pounds.
It's number of plants. 1.6 million plants, which exceeds the number of plants currently under cultivation and the number of plants cultivated together.
Right. So
that's just since December.
Right. So that could be 1 to 3 pounds a plant, but depending on the circumstances. And if some of that was outside, it could be more. So millions of pounds have been destroyed, and a lot of that was perfectly good, usable cannabis.
Destroyed.
Look at Berg. I love it. Right.
Yeah. So somebody burned it just a little bit at a time.
Yeah. Series of tiny fires. But there's requirements. The MMFLA and then the MRTMA just adopted these things. They require you to videotape your destruction of it. There's very specific ways you have to do it. You have to mix it with certain inert components to render it unusable forever. So it's
put it in cat litter.
Yeah, so stupid, man. Well,
yes.
This stuff. I mean, as more time goes by, as as activity gets in people's face and negative consequences don't result, the sky doesn't fall and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully those little bullshit things like that can start falling off. I mean,
the medical law looks an awful lot like a bunch of people who didn't know a damn thing about cannabis wrote it. Oh, wait.
That came from
That is what it is. Yes. Yeah. So, and again, they were being led by fear. They were told by the testing industry that cannabis could kill you and that you needed to have the most extreme testing in the United States in order to keep our people safe. And we're told, other things about cannabis and its likelihood of causing crime. So they made ridiculous rules about who could get in and who couldn't get in. They eliminated some of the things they could have done that would have been great in the original MMFLA program, like caregiver supply and calling for expungement and redefining things. But now they had a different view of what medical and legalized cannabis was going to look like in America and in Michigan.
Now, I'm not sure if we mentioned this last week or not, but in addition to the news that Rick read off, there was a ruling in the descheduling case with Moran Law and Cannabis Council and with John Sinclair and Michigan Normal and Michigan Medical Marijuana Association and Josie and others as plaintiffs. And it was kind of reminded me of the ruling we got in the Am I Legalized ballot count decision, which didn't look at the actual arguments, just kind of kick the can on a technicality. And in this case, they said that the appeal actually was trying to argue something different than what they originally sued for, or something like that. And it's not really the case. Talked about this on Planet Green Trees a little bit last Thursday.
It's a bit of a judicial dodge where instead of saying, all right, this is how we feel about the really pressing issue at hand, they sidestep that by finding a technicality that allows them to do what they wanted to do without actually having to make a ruling on those important issues.
It was a kick the can type of a thing. So we're hoping to get leave to the Supreme Court, but there's other ways this can happen. There might be subsequent suits. And I think we may be currently being joined by our next guest, who is a candidate for Wayne County prosecutor, and would be challenging Kim Worthy, the incumbent. And we are welcoming Victoria Burton Harris.
Sorry about that. Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Really happy to have you here. Just a frame of reference to let you know, we've had quite a few candidates on lately in the last couple of weeks. We've had Ellie Savitt from Washtenaw County running for Washtenaw County prosecutor, and Karen MacDougall running for Oakland County prosecutor. And I'm going to let you describe your position on our issue, cannabis, and other things that you do. But I've heard a little bit of it and have a general idea where you stand. And we're talking about how great it would be if all three of these counties could have representation.
I'd love to work together with Ellie and with Karen MacDougall. They're both wonderful human beings. And it would be tremendous for the Tri-County area if we could, well, not really the Tri-County area. It would be wonderful if Macomb also could get a progressive prosecutor, and they may be able to get one. But if all four of these counties could make progress along with Genesee County, there's a progressive candidate out there, we could really do some good for the state of Michigan and its citizens. But I, like Ellie and Karen MacDougall, I am running on a progressive platform to end mass incarceration and to reform our broken criminal justice system. And whenever I say that, I cringe a little bit because I am a lawyer, a Black lawyer with an undergraduate degree in African American Studies and political science. So I'm very well aware that unfortunately the system is not broken. It works as it was designed to work. The 13th Amendment allows a form of slavery to continue right now today through the criminal legal system. I often refer to it as the criminal injustice system because there is not much justice in the system as it currently is built. And because the system is not designed to protect the people that it insists upon feasting on, and those people are people of color, our babies, our children, folks with mental health issues and substance abuse issues, folks living in poverty and with unresolved, unaddressed trauma. It is incumbent upon prosecutors, the gatekeepers to this system, to get within the system and to break it down, to dismantle it to nothing, and make sure that we rebuild it as a system that is equitable and works for all people and is truly a just system.
Right on. Can definitely appreciate that. I know you've done a lot of these kind of answering questions and where you stand on these issues. And I've been able to hear some of it, but if you don't mind, let us know what your thoughts are on where cannabis is now, what you would like to see change, your general position and understanding of our cannabis issue.
Well, one, I'd like to back it up. So I think it's a bit disingenuous to talk about the cannabis issue as it now stands, and not talk about how we have currently a large portion of folks in our society who have been relegated to the bottom of society based on marijuana convictions during a time where citizens have voiced that we want to use marijuana, not just for medicinal purposes, but for recreational purposes. And so folks are engaging in, the use of marijuana now, and there are not consequences, whereas 10, 15, 20 years ago and longer, there were, and people are still living with those consequences in the form of convictions, and they can't get work, they can't take care of their family, they can't get public dollars for education or live in public housing oftentimes because of these convictions. So I think you have to start with redressing. One, you have to acknowledge the failed war on drugs, okay? You have to acknowledge the field war on drugs, and then two, you have to acknowledge who that hurt most, and it's hurt mostly Black men. And then you have to say, once you acknowledge it and understand it and how prosecutors have upheld this system and exacerbated the problems, you then have to enter a critical conversation of what you're going to do about it as the next gatekeeper. And for me, that means automatic marijuana expungements. There is a package of bills that's been kicked around in Lansing for some time now regarding automatic marijuana expungements and expanding the expungement laws in general. But until that passes, I strongly believe that any elected prosecutor has the ability and the responsibility to move their county forward by connecting themselves to companies like Code for America, companies who can use the voter roll, cell phone data, driver's license databases, and can effectively wipe out automatically marijuana convictions to allow people to have a fresh start, including operate marijuana dispensaries, including engaging in the medical in the marijuana business, whether it's for recreational use or medicinal uses. There is a lot of money to be made in this industry. My husband, who's also a defense attorney, he used to work for the Cannabis Council on Jefferson here in Detroit. And, a lot of times back when the laws changed so much, but back when this was an initially, a hot topic in the beginning, people were boxed out of opportunities just because of their background. And I certainly don't think that that's fair. I don't think that there's anything equitable or just in boxing folks out from economic opportunity because of their background. And so I would like to see us address that first before we start talking about the current issues.
Now, Ms. Burton-Harris, you should know that the package of bills that's currently being proposed by the and in the Senate right now doesn't actually include automatic expungement for cannabis crimes. Mm-hmm. The Jeff Irwin bill, which is not currently part of the package, does automatically expunge cannabis crimes, and the important part is to swap those two out to make sure the package that goes through is correct. But as a prosecutor at the county level, what can you do to expunge those crimes in your district, in your zone?
So I've spoken with some of the members of a coalition here locally in Wayne County that have been working on this issue. They've educated me, and I have also confirmed this information with folks out in California who have been dealing with Code for America, and they've confirmed that it does work. For automatic expungements to happen on a countywide level, it will cost me about $15,000, and they use the voter roll, cell phone data, and driver's license databases, and they effectively automatically wipe out these marijuana convictions. And I can, as a prosecutor, say, well, I want marijuana convictions wiped out if they're not connected to other crimes, or I don't care if they're connected to other serious crimes. I want them wiped out, which I'm in favor of them being wiped out, period. Doesn't matter what they were connected to. When you talk about genuine change and bold change and real change, you got to be real. And let's be real about it. If you say that you are for something, you don't go behind closed doors and chip away at it until the point where it might as well not even be happening. And I believe in saying things out loud to the public so that the public can hold me accountable and say, well, wait a minute, on July 28th or 29th, you were on a show and you said that you supported automatic expungements for all marijuana convictions. And I'll say, you're absolutely right. I did say that, and now hold me to it. So yes, there's no reason for it. No, really, it's a new age. It's time to stop this, this politricking game, as I like to call it. If you are a politician, you don't have to engage in the game playing. You can realize that you represent people, that it's not about you. And when you represent people, you put them first, even if you don't think it's in their best interest or something that you want to engage in. You step down and you give someone else the seat if you don't think you can do it. But, in this day and age, the people have spoken, and this is what the people need. When people have opportunities to not just survive, but to thrive and to take care of themselves and their families and be, contributing members of society, that's how you create safe and just communities. And that's when you see a lot of the crime decrease, when you give people opportunities and you invest in them. And this is nothing more than a $15,000 investment that we will see great returns on in Wayne County.
Would that be a similar, so meaning that Karen MacDougall or Ellie Savitt could do a similar thing in their respective counties?
I have not, spoken with them to see where their heads are on that, but
I know,
it is my
but I mean,
understanding-
theoretically, they could, though.
They
As a
could,
mechanism
yes.
available to county leaders that could be utilized there too.
Yes,
Would that automatically erase that record from the Michigan State Police database also?
yes, yes, yes. So it would
That.
not erase the arrest record, but it would erase the conviction. Yeah.
Could the AG then decide to still prosecute those people that you?
These people would already have been convicted that we're looking
Okay.
to expunge their records. So she
Okay.
wouldn't be able to re-prosecute them because that would, then trigger double jeopardy.
Sure. Okay, good. Just, I mean, and otherwise wouldn't stop the process in any other legal manner.
No.
And there's no legislative mechanism that would prevent you on a county level from being able to enable this?
All of the legislation that's currently pending is statewide. That's why, I, at times being a lawyer was just like, blah, but then at times it's like, ooh, there's the goodie. Yeah, yeah.
Rick brought up some basic issues with those bills, and on the marijuana one, you might be aware of this already, but what we don't like is that it purports to allow expungement for cannabis activity that was made legal by the MRTMA, but it actually only allows that for possession and use. The MRTMA allows for people to grow and to distribute and to pass it around, but it does not allow for expungements for manufacturing and delivery.
Hey, Jamie, remember I'm a lawyer, so I play with words and I choose my words carefully. I said any marijuana conviction. It does not matter to me if it was distribution, if it was possession, if it was from, growing. It doesn't matter. You know why it doesn't matter? It might matter on a personal level to me or someone else, and on a personal level, it doesn't bother me at all. But it doesn't matter because it's not about the person in the hot seat. It's about the people that they represent, and the people in Wayne County and across the state. We have spoken and we have said what it is that we want. And so who are our leaders to deny us as the people what we want? We have the power. And if you don't give us what we want, damn it, we're going to replace you with someone who will. It's that simple.
Wayne County, of course, has potentially the largest single county that could be affected by this. Any idea how many people might be affected by a county-based expungement program?
Well, I can't tell you the number because I'm not privy to the database. There is not a system in place in Wayne County that we can go and find all of the people who've been saddled with marijuana convictions from, over the last 10 years, over the last 15 years. And that's one of the issues that I'm concerned about addressing when I get into office is making sure that we have a database. We don't have a database, and it's not hard to put one together. It's not expensive either. You have to start somewhere. I mean, you could start using practice management software that small law firms use for like $100 a month. It doesn't take a lot to compile data so that it's easy for me to answer those types of questions, Rick. But because there has been a lack of transparency with the current Wayne County prosecutor, I can't tell you exactly how many, but I imagine that just as we are the leading county in every other statistic around here in criminal justice reform and issues, I imagine that we are, leading or at the tippy top. Exactly. I know. I mean, look at it like this. The war on drugs has attacked primarily Black and brown men. Okay. And that Wayne County is only 39% Black, yet the Wayne County jail population is about 70% Black. And that the top crimes that folks are charged with typically are gun and drug crimes, right? So it would lead one to reasonably believe that we probably are at the tippy top of counties, leading the way for not just drug convictions, but specifically marijuana convictions.
So, you've demonstrated a really deep understanding of these issues, and I definitely really appreciate that, and I'm sure everybody else here does too. And you alluded to something else that's an additional problem too, when you said any marijuana conviction, even if it's connected to something else. There's a problem oftentimes, especially with our minority citizens and the Black and brown men, as you bring up, that an investigation starts with some cannabis and then leads to all types of other things and a pile on of charges and stuff that could all happen in the same night. And there was a bill that didn't go anywhere from House Rep Sherry Gay.
Sherry Gay Daniego. Yeah, I read that bill.
One bad night. And you kind of alluded to that could be the case with some people, and
Mhm.
that still wasn't going to, be an issue for you, which I appreciate.
It's not an issue for me. It's also not an issue for me to treat drug use as the public health crisis that it is. So oftentimes we want to connect marijuana charges with other drug charges. And then I've even seen them connected to drug-induced homicides or drug-induced deaths that have been ruled homicides, which then brings, a whole nother can of worms that's opened up. And I stand by my decision that we should be parsing marijuana out completely. It doesn't matter what else it's connected to, because again, the citizens have spoken.
And each of the 4 times recently, the Detroit citizens have been censused through the election. They've voted yes on first medical, then on local legal, and then on the last two proposals which passed, but then were ruled unavailable because of a court decision. So Detroit consistently supports cannabis law reform. And of course, Wayne County, look at the way that Wayne County is embracing cannabis businesses in certain communities. I think it's pretty obvious where their feelings are as well.
So,
when the people are your moral compass, you will never go wrong. That's all I'll say on that. It's not about money. It's simply about being a servant. And when you serve, it's about the people that you serve.
So we asked this to Ellie and to Karen about the transition. How do you like, everything is successful and you win? Things have been going a certain way for many years, and how do you see that transition of making the change that you want to make when you take over that office?
Transforming
it's
culture.
Be challenging. Yeah, it's going to be challenging. I expect that there are going to be some people who will not get on board to my new agenda and the way that I want to run that office, and that will be dealt with accordingly. I expect that there will be folks who will, go along to get along, but will truly not be on board, and we will deal with those issues accordingly. I expect there to be some hesitancy from law enforcement officers sometimes. As I've been speaking with them on the campaign trail, they have voiced to me that they are not fans of the Wayne County prosecutor. If you look, there's no one in the city of Detroit who has come out in support of the Wayne County prosecutor, not one person. And that's pretty telling that endorsements for her fly from Western Wayne County and downriver, where arguably there are more conservative folks who prefer a tough on crime approach. But the folks who are living in the heart of the city of Detroit, folks who are the elected officials in Detroit, they have not come out in support of the current prosecutor. And so when you talk about relationships, it's my understanding that that relationship has broken down a long time ago, and that they are interested in someone new, but they are fearful that the new person, being me, may not be quick to listen to them and work with them. And I have done as best as I can. I've attempted to assure them that my idea of governance, it centers around collaboration with all players, elected officials, law enforcement, and most importantly, the community and those who are most impacted by the criminal legal system. I expect that there will be some, messing around with my funding for people who did not like the fact that I was elected. I expect them to, find ways to keep me from some funding that might be currently available to the current Wayne County prosecutor, and I'm prepared for that. You don't get this far in an election outraising a 16-year incumbent unless you have relationships, not just on a local and a state level, but a national level. And I can promise you that organizations that are backing myself and Ellie, and even some or one in particular that's backing Karen, those are all organizations that are connected to other organizations that have funding available for progressive prosecutors once they get in office to do and make the kind of reforms that they promised on the campaign trail. It's often said of new incumbents like myself that, oh, there's no experience there. Oh, they don't have the relationships. Well, quite frankly, not only do I have the relationships, I have new and better relationships with national and statewide organizations who have the funding and just won't release it to a prosecutor such as the current prosecutor in Wayne County, because they're not ready to make and move the needle toward reform the way that it should be. So while I expect it to be rocky, it's nothing that I'm afraid of. Clearly, I'm not afraid of a challenge. And I know that you get more bees with honey than vinegar. So there will be people that I will just make sure that I put a little extra love on the relationship as we're building it, to reassure them that I am not here to hurt them or work against them. I'm here to ultimately work for the people that we all serve, which is the community. And we won't create a safe and just community unless we work together.
Do you have previous elected office experience?
I do not. I never thought that I wanted to be in politics. So for me, I've built a lot of relationships in the community, being a community lawyer, a movement lawyer, working with a lot of grassroots organizations and other legal organizations to ensure that we can push reform from the ground level up. And it was during that work that people kept saying, you really should run against the current prosecutor. And I laughed at them and I was like, oh no, I should not. I don't know how to run a campaign. I don't know how to raise money. And, they laughed and they're like, you know more than you think you know. And quite frankly, the main reason why I didn't want to do this was because I had this very traditional view of prosecutors that all they did was lock people up and send them to jail and prison. And they were mostly people who looked like me. And so I said, no, why would I ever want to, do that job and continue to feed bodies through the carceral state and fuel mass incarceration? And it wasn't until a friend of mine said, Victoria, you're thinking too narrowly about this issue. Why don't you look at progressive prosecutors like Larry Krasner and Kim Fox and Rachel Rollins and Kim Gardner? And I was like, well, who are they and what's a progressive prosecutor? And I began to read more. I began to read books like Arbitrary Justice by Professor Angela J. Davis. I had conversations with her. I had conversations with folks from Vera. I had conversations with folks from a lot of these national organizations who were doing the work of putting young, oftentimes defense attorneys like myself, into the role of a progressive prosecutor candidate, and then turning that candidate into a progressive prosecutor or DA and reforming the system from the inside out. And that was music to my ears, because that's what I'm all about. I'm all about using my power for good. Charles Hamilton Houston, the dean of Howard Law School, some time ago, a Black lawyer, prominent Black lawyer, he said, to begin this skin as a Black lawyer, you have one of two jobs. You can either be a social engineer for justice, or you can be a parasite on your community. And so I saw this as an opportunity to truly be a social engineer for justice. And I'm excited to see where this road will take all of us next Tuesday.
Police misconduct is one of those hot button issues, and in the position of county prosecutor, you have the opportunity to make sure that officer involved shootings are handled in an appropriate way, because oftentimes local communities like to push things under the rug and not fully investigate or conceal misdeeds. How, in your role as prosecutor, would you be able to influence those local communities or even the big city of Detroit to be able to be more transparent, or perhaps would you be willing to take over some of those investigations from the city?
So I not only would like to take over some of those investigations, I'd like to also put them in the hands of an independent unit that is not just comprised of Wayne County prosecutors, because as you know, we have a history of picking and choosing when we go after police officers and choose to hold them accountable. But I also got to back up and say accountability doesn't start when officers engage in misconduct that leads to the untimely loss of a life. Misconduct also includes when you lie in a police report, when you fail to turn on your body-worn camera, which is a department policy in every department that has them, when you lie on the witness stand, and when you get away with it. So here recently, that, and if you don't, about 2 weeks ago, the Wayne County prosecutor, she released a list of 35 untruthful officers for the purported reason that trials were going to be resuming in August post-pandemic, and that she thought prosecutors and defense attorneys and the public alike should have access to officers, presumably so that they would not be testifying at a trial, or if they could be cross-examined appropriately. But when
why would they keep their jobs if they have that status?
Well, that's a question, but that's the bigger issue. The list is much longer. So for instance, the two officers who engaged in misconduct, back in the early 2000s when a 14-year-old child by the name of Devontae Sanford was forced to plead guilty to a quadruple murder he didn't commit. Those officers are not on that list. In fact, one of them, Tolbert, he was transferred to Flint after that incident when he was found to lied, questioned that child without his parents, without a lawyer. And then after he left Flint, he moved on to Highland Park. And so when you don't hold police officers accountable, that's what happens. But in addition to that list not being complete, Rick, the list is smoke and mirrors. The list had 35 names, 33 of which are dead, retired, or already in prison. So these are officers that are not these are not
Purely
officers
political,
who,
right?
Exactly. That's always been a part of my platform. And I think once my opponent saw a poll that Wayne County residents were most interested in three things: cash bail being reformed and ending, racial equity within the criminal legal system, and more police accountability. I believe that's when you started seeing a change in her tune, and she thought that that list would suffice 3 weeks before the election. But in all actuality, it was very clear because reporters obviously started digging in and sending FOIA requests. And then it was like, well, wait a minute. Only 2 of these officers are still working. And then the question becomes, like Jamie said, I believe, why aren't these officers, why are these officers still allowed to work? And what about the ones who are not on the list? What have you done about this for years that you set on this list? So I don't think that it does anyone any good, especially during a time where there's very little trust between the community and law enforcement and the community and elected prosecutors, to pick and choose who gets prosecuted that wears a blue uniform and when they get prosecuted. When I go into office, it will be very well known across the board that I treat all people fairly, whether you're in a blue uniform or not. I'll hold all people accountable, whether you're in a blue uniform or not, and to make sure that I'm holding those in blue uniforms accountable and not, putting myself in a position to be accused of doing special favors because I work so closely with them. I will be establishing an independent public integrity unit. So that means that my office will not be the one solely responsible for prosecuting police officers. My office will also follow in the footsteps of Kim Foxx in Cook County, where Chicago sits, and I will be allowing the public to make online complaints when they have been victims of police brutality, because when you talk about victims of crime, you certainly should not be excluding people who have been victims of police brutality. And I also want to ensure that folks are getting the attention that they need on those cases and a fresh set of unbiased eyes that don't sit in the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office.
That seems like a barrier-free way for people to communicate with your department. Oftentimes there's forms to fill out and you got to talk to somebody on the phone. People are discouraged in making a report because of all of the requirements necessary to make that report. But if you streamline that, you'll get a better feedback from the community.
Absolutely. We have forms already if you want to go onto the Michigan Attorney General's website to make a complaint about felony non-support, not getting your child support. It's easy peasy form. Why don't we have a form to report bad officers to the prosecutor's office right on its website? Easy peasy. You just have to have the mind and the heart to do it.
Awesome.
So please make sure you include anything that you'd like to add to your message here with us today and how people can connect with you in your campaign.
Thank you so much. Thank you. My platform, in its entirety, can be found on my website, victoria2020.org. Again, I'm running to reform our very broken criminal justice system, to end mass incarceration, to treat children like children, and to bring home all of our former juvenile lifers. It's a really big issue for me. I also care deeply about a report that came out in January from Vera Institute for Justice in DC, that we're jailing too many people and the wrong people. We're jailing a lot of folks with mental illness and substance abuse. And we know that one cannot get well in a cell, that we are only exacerbating the problem when we treat public health issues like criminal issues. We also have a cash bail problem in Wayne County that I am eager to address and follow the recommendations of the Michigan Jails Task Force in stopping innocent folks pretrial from sitting in the Wayne County Jail simply because they don't have the money to afford to buy their freedom. If you want to join me in this fight to change our justice system and to put a bold progressive leader in the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, please like our Facebook page at Victoria for Prosecutor, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at VBH4 Prosecutor, and certainly tell everyone you know to get out and vote for Victoria Burton Harris August 4th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think you got a lot of support in this group here.
Well done. Well done.
I'd like to
Thank
see,
you.
I mean, we have a lot of candidates on here who are definitely in support. I haven't heard somebody offer such an excellent description or of an understanding of our issue and the things that really need to be addressed.
Well, more than the understanding, you actually articulated plans to resolve problems. People are very good at pointing out problems or telling stories, but when it comes down to solution time, they squeeze it into the last 20 seconds of their time. So you've done
That's how you know.
outlining
He's not a politician. Man.
ideas.
Give her some
that-
time.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't want to become. I don't want to become this run-of-the-mill politician. I am still very much so just a servant, and I love what I do. I love trying to help people, and it certainly helps that I have a strong background in doing this work. And I've dealt with a lot of marijuana cases that were BS, and I've had to articulate this issue to judges. I was in the courtroom breaking down the history of the war on drugs to a judge for the purpose of, sentencing and how was continuing the problem with his proposed sentence. So it's certainly something that I've been advocating for a long time. It's not something that was hard for me to adopt as a part of a platform because I stand by it. And I believe that if you look at other jurisdictions and you see clearly that these reforms are taking hold and they're working, why wouldn't we do it here in Wayne County?
Don't you change. You're a keeper. Good job.
Yeah, I'm a recent move. I just moved to Wayne County. Just moved to Detroit a few months ago.
Okay.
I'll be voting for you.
Thank you. Thank you so
Very
much.
Thanks for coming on here. We'll check back with you.
Thanks for inviting me. Okay.
All
All right.
Best wishes.
Bye-bye.
Colin, you just recently were on another Zoom thing with her, weren't you? In another group?
No, I wasn't.
Zara and some others were, I believe.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
she was on
Progressive
some-
Caucus, maybe.
Yeah.
Pretty
Okay.
amazing.
Yeah, that's a very powerful candidate.
I was
First-
tagged in it, but I didn't.
I heard some things from her before. That's why I kind of knew generally that but that was even better than I expected. Her position on things and her ability to, as Rick said, recognize the problem and then ideas of what to do about it, and then be like kind of motivated and the energy in her voice when she talked about doing it. I mean, she
I
wants.
know she's
she's
like
motivated to
of
get in there and do
course,
some stuff.
Jamie. Do I have to
Yeah,
like
yeah.
spell it out?
My words are
Like-
clear. My words have meaning. And
Yeah.
I want this shit done. That was great.
For someone who's a first-time candidate, she has a pretty good grasp of exactly what the office is all about that she's going into, and that's important because normally that's a pretty big first step to go to county prosecutor of the largest county and the 9th largest state of the United States. That's a big one. Good for her. Damn, she's ready.
That was a good one. I'd like to see her and people like her get into office. We'll be better off all the way around.
Definitely.
Yep. No, we've had a great run of wonderful candidates on Jazz Cabbage Cafe, people that I feel confident about their stance on cannabis, but also I feel confident about their competence to have the position that they're seeking. Oftentimes we have people that are good on our issue, but just are kind of slubs and not very exciting as a well-rounded candidate. Man, we've had some great people. Al Williams is just solid as hell. I love Al. He's a great guy, and he deserves this position. Reggie Reg, he's got a good idea of what it would take. He's ready to stand up for African American males in the cannabis in the criminal justice system. Man,
Lana Simpson.
Sure. Dave Palmer, Nicole Braden. There was an advertisement for Al that he put out recently, which Isaac Robinson endorses him posthumously.
Yeah.
And it's pretty moving.
Yeah.
That's on my Facebook page and other places too. People want to check that out.
Isaac Robinson, for our viewers that aren't familiar, Isaac Robinson, House Representative, beloved Detroiter, passed away from complications related to COVID crisis earlier this year.
He was, supporter and a really good guy, really good voice in the legislature, and it was a big loss. Friends and associates with lots of people in that area. and good to our community.
And a family where Mary Robinson, his mother, had served as a House representative and also on Detroit City Council, I believe. Quite connected. A jolly guy. A guy who had a big voice, but you never heard him roar. He never needed to.
I guess he could dance, like ballet dance, too.
He was a ballroom dancer, not ballet.
I'm
I
sorry.
mean, that
ballroom.
evokes a bad image.
He was nimble,
Ballroom.
but not that nimble.
Ballroom.
He could get around for being a...
Rerun. He was like rerun on What's Happening.
Wow. That's a really challenged set of leotards. If Isaac Robinson was a ballet dancer.
Rerun was spotted for that show because he was dancing on.
Right. He was doing that awesome dancing on
Right.
Soul Train.
He had that multicolored beanie hat on. Yeah.
Don Cornelius.
and he had that awesome.
Don Cornelius' Soul Train. Yeah. That guy was cool. Right, Jim? Don Cornelius was cool.
Definitely, man. Show is gone forever.
Yeah.
So we got 2 minutes left. Does anybody have anything they need to throw out there? Ray, you did an awesome job up north for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
man.
It was a lot of fun. Great time.
We'll do that again. We can do it again when I'm not totally wiped out either. I was about ready to pass out by the time I was leaving.
Northeast Michigan Normal Highway Roadside Cleanup Jamie's referencing in Tawas with the Botanical Company. Thanks to the support for all the people that showed up and the TBC for the shirts and all the stuff.
Yeah, and great video job by Derek.
Yes.
Keep the word out a little bit on it.
Yeah, I've got Om has a comedy live stream this Saturday, July 31st at 9 p.m.
Nice.
I'm sorry, it's Friday, July 31st at 9 p.m.
Awesome.
And that's virtual. And then the Psychedelic Society has a conference coming up downtown at the Bushnell Congregational Church. That's going to be August 6th through 8th. It starts at 6 o'clock on Thursday, August 6th. And just check out psychedelicsociety.org for more info.
Perfect. And of course, Medical Mondays at 9. Berg's with us now. That's a great show. And we've been appreciating being on there and being a part of the discussion the last few weeks.
Roach joins us once in a while, too.
He does. And Planet Green Trees out there. 420 Stop, which is the new show that Rick's doing every
420 Post.
420 Post. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Every other Wednesday.
Wednesday. There's the Smoke and Rope, which is Ryan Basor's new show.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of good stuff out there. And they all should be working together. And somebody interested in this should listen or watch all of them.
Scott Roberts has a cannabis law podcast also too. If you're into the legal side of this, he's definitely worth watching.
And in fact, we're gonna have him on here soon too. I ended up talking to him. Rick and I tried to call him on some issues the other day. He called me back and we talked for a little while, and it was really good. And he's got some great shit to say. So we'll have him on this show in the next couple of weeks or so.
He and I shared a stage at the latest cannabis event that Mr. Thomas Tong did. But I know we're running out of time. We got to go.
So I think that's it, right, Colin? Jazz Cabbage Cafe, another great show. Thank you guys. Thanks everybody for being on. Hope Deb positive vibes to you
Positive
for healing.
vibes. Deb. Love ya.
Yep.
That's fucked up, right?
Thank you guys.
Good job.